Have you ever thought you knew someone inside and out? What if one day, out of nowhere, everything you thought you knew about them was completely turned upside down? Imagine, after years of marriage, your wife, the person you've shared your dreams, fears, and even your deepest secrets with, suddenly looks at you and says, "I can't take it anymore. I have a confession to make." This wasn't just any confession. No, it was the kind of confession that would haunt you for the rest of your life. That moment was the beginning of the end of everything I thought I understood about love, trust, and loyalty. The air in the room thickened as the weight of her words sank in. I couldn't move. My heart was pounding in my chest, like it was trying to escape. Every possible thought ran through my mind, all of them worse than the last. Was she going to tell me something small? A mistake? Or was it something far worse than that? My mind raced, and I almost felt like I was sinking into the floor beneath me. Before she could speak, I just needed to know what she was hiding, even if it meant hearing the worst. Before we dive in, please subscribe to our channel. It means the world to us and helps us bring you more amazing stories. We were just like any other couple, or so I thought. My wife, Emily, and I met when we were in college. We were the kind of couple everyone admired, always laughing, always in sync, always supporting each other through everything life threw at us. We got married after graduation, and soon after, we built a life together. A house, careers, dreams. Our story seemed like it was written in the stars. But over the years, I began to notice something wasn't quite right. Emily had always been so attentive, so affectionate. She was the type of person who made sure I was never alone, never felt abandoned. But there were moments, little things that made me question her true feelings. The sudden long phone calls, her growing distractions during dinner, the late-night meetings with work colleagues that seemed to drag on. And then the unexplained absences. It was like she was slipping away, bit by bit, without even realizing it. Or perhaps she did realize it and chose not to acknowledge it. I tried to ignore the gut feeling that gnawed at me, telling myself that every marriage goes through ups and downs. But nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to hear. That day started like any other. We had breakfast together, but there was a strange tension in the air. Emily seemed off, like she was carrying a heavy burden. Her eyes avoided mine, and she kept fiddling with her coffee cup, swirling it absent-mindedly. But I didn't push it. I figured she had a lot on her plate, what with work and everything else going on. But by the time we were sitting in our living room, the quiet between us became deafening. I could feel it, the pressure building in her chest, the words she had been holding in for so long. I watched her wring her hands, her fingers twisting and turning as she took deep breaths, like she was trying to find the right words. It was as if she was trying to steady herself, to brace herself for the storm she was about to unleash. Finally, she let out a long sigh, a deep, sorrowful sound, and said, "I've been lying to you about everything." My heart stopped. I froze. Her voice trembled, and she seemed as if she was about to break down completely. I had so many questions, but none of them felt important in that moment. All I could think of was how badly I wanted to hear what came next, but at the same time, how terrified I was of hearing it. "Emily, what do you mean?" My voice came out hoarse, barely a whisper. That's when she told me the truth. It was worse than I ever imagined. Emily confessed to having an affair. Not once, not twice, but several times over the past 2 years. It was someone I knew, someone I had trusted. My best friend, Mark, the one person I had considered family. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. My stomach twisted into knots, my chest caved in, and I couldn't breathe. I tried to focus, to ground myself, but every word she spoke felt like a knife to my heart. The betrayal cut deep. How could she do this to me? To us? To everything we had built? How long had this been going on? How could she look me in the eye every day and lie to me for so long? Was I that blind? That foolish? She explained how it all started, how she had felt neglected, how she had fallen out of love with me, and how Mark had come into her life at just the right time. He had been there for her in ways I hadn't been. He had listened when she needed someone to talk to. But none of that mattered. None of it made me feel any less worthless. None of it could erase the hurt. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I couldn't let them fall. I couldn't show her that kind of weakness. Instead, I stood up, pacing around the room, trying to make sense of everything. My mind was a whirlwind of anger, sadness, and disbelief. My voice cracked as I asked her why. I was weak. I thought I could fix things, but I only made it worse. And then came the worst part. She told me she was leaving. She couldn't live with herself anymore. She had already made up her mind to be with Mark, and she was planning to move out that very evening. My world felt like it was crumbling piece by piece. I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. My head was spinning with 100 emotions, rage, grief, betrayal, but nothing was enough to stop her. That night was the longest of my life. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I kept replaying everything over and over again in my head. How had I missed the signs? How had I been so blind to her pain? How had I let this happen? The next morning, Emily left. She packed up her things, and with a final glance back at the house we had built together, she walked out the door. I couldn't stop her. Part of me wanted to scream, to beg her to stay, but the other part of me knew that this was it. It was over. The life I had known, the life I had built, was no longer mine. The days that followed were a blur. I threw myself into work, trying to numb the pain. But no matter how busy I got, her absence was everywhere: her empty side of the bed, the quiet house, the unanswered messages. I was alone, surrounded by the ghost of a life I thought was real. In the weeks that followed, I started digging. I reached out to friends and family, trying to piece together what had really happened. It turned out that Emily had been unhappy for a long time, but I had been too focused on my own life to see it. She had felt invisible, like she wasn't enough for me anymore. And Mark, he had preyed on her vulnerability. But what hurt the most was realizing that the love we had was never truly mutual. She had been holding on to something that was gone, while I had been living in a fantasy, thinking everything was fine. I confronted Mark. I demanded answers, but he couldn't even look me in the eye. He apologized, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. Our friendship was over, and no apology could fix the devastation he had caused. I realized something important that day. I couldn't keep holding on to the past. Emily made her choice, and now it was time for me to make mine. I couldn't fix what was broken, but I could heal myself. In the end, I learned that sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the most. But it's not their betrayal that defines us, it's how we rise from it. As painful as it was, I knew that my journey wasn't over. I had the power to rebuild my life, to find my happiness again. And that's exactly what I did. If you're going through something similar, know that you're not alone. Subscribe to my channel for more stories of overcoming pain and betrayal. And remember, your story isn't over yet.